am Lady Charmaine, and my guest today is a former Navy SEAL who has received many awards for saving the life of fellow Navy SEALs. And he's here today to talk about the new movie Act of Valor in theaters on February the 24th. I want you to help me welcome Jeff Brambstadt to the show. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for joining me on the show today. Good to have you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, you have a great bio. I was reading your bio, and of course, you're a former Navy SEAL. And I want to know, can you kind of tell us what makes the Navy SEALs different from any other branch in the military, or if there is a difference?
Well, the Navy SEALs is it's a small segment of the branch, being the Navy, and it is extremely different. It's in fact, it's so different that it's really hard to put words on it. But one of the main differences you're going to find is just the type of people that are in that. You will definitely find, and I'm not saying this to belittle or berate any other, and I'm very familiar with, I've been to Army Special Forces School. I've been around a lot of different branches of the military. It's just a different type of person that's in and among the SEAL community that it's an amazing type of person. It's a type of people, when you get around them, you want to find out what makes them click, because there's something about them that you want to take with you, and you want to put it into your own personal life, and because maybe it might help something work for you too. It's just a really interesting type of person.
Now, Jeff, I'm glad you said that, because my husband had a coworker who was a former Navy SEAL, and he was the most unassuming man I've ever met. He was short in stature. He wasn't tall. He wasn't really big. Very meek gentleman. And when we found out he was a Navy SEAL, we were so shocked because he had such a great personality. But I'm not, I think maybe he knew the power that he possessed, so he didn't have to walk around, with this big chip on his shoulder. Very nice guy. Then he went on to work for Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. So what you just said was so true.
Yes. I run into guys. I work with guys every day, whether they're pre-trainees, bud students, SEALs, or retired guys, and help them with a lot of things that they may be struggling with. Because SEALs don't have it all together. It's just not. They're no different than any other person. They're still men at the end of the day, but at the same time, they do understand what it takes to fight for the things that are worth fighting for. Being able to choose a battle and really go after it with everything that you have. So ultimately, even though they struggle with something, they are very, very apt to overcome whatever it is that's in their life. And so that is, when you run into guys who are out and about in life, and you find out they're Navy SEALs, oftentimes you look in retrospect, you start to play back conversations that you've had with them. You say, yeah, it kind of makes sense now. I can kind of see some of those qualities popping through in some of the things that they may have said to me, or some of the things I may have seen them do.
Now, the movie Act of Valor, which is in theaters on February the 24th, it's about Navy SEAls. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about the movie?
Yes, it's an unprecedented Hollywood feature utilizing active duty Navy SEAls instead of actors. So it really, quite frankly, it kind of circumvents the whole reason that movies and production teams bring on a technical advisor. They don't need to do that with this movie, because they have the real guys, the real gear, the real things that they would say, the real things that they would do under fire, and all the way down to the humor, down to the how kind of upset you can get, or how things can just go wrong. Even though you're Navy SEALs, things still go wrong, and go wrong often. But it's how do you handle that when things do go wrong? How are you going to be able to adjust as quickly as the situation went bad, to go ahead and make sure that you get the outcome that you are required to come back with? See, they're expecting, the people who are back at the Tactical Operation Command are expecting excellence, and they're expecting success. So when you expect success, when you expect excellence, now mediocrity goes right out the door. And so that means that when the situation changes and goes bad, now you have a group of guys who are able to rise to it, make the adjustment, change, and bob and weave with the situation, causing the outcome that they had originally desired. And you'll get to see that firsthand in this movie. And not to mention, the other thing that's really good about this movie, too, is being able to watch these men interact with their families, interact with their children, and interact with with each other off duty. And you get to fall in love with them as characters and say, you know, these are real men. These are just guys that are out there doing what, you know, out there doing a bunch of dirty work, and so much rests on every action that you do as a SEAL in an operation. And people in the media, when you're watching the news, you just get to see the end result. But what about all the planning that went into it? What about the stress that was there? That's the stuff. That's where you get to really understand in this movie really what all goes into a SEAL mission, if that makes sense.
It does. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Jeff Brambstadt. He's a former Navy SEAL. We're talking about the movie Act of Valor. Now, why did they decide to choose actual Navy SEALs instead of just actors?
Well, I think it was an opportunity that was presented to the production team, the Bandito brothers, that they just couldn't pass up. And I think it's a little bit of a mix. And again, I'm just going from my personal stance here because I have not spoken to people that are in the high production team. But I think that it made sense at the time. There was an opportunity. There was a willing production team. The Navy at the time was willing to do this because they were maybe pushing forward on recruiting. But then since then, there's been a lot of things that have happened media-wise, the SEALs have been involved in, that have, you know, caused other attentions to happen as well. So now they're in the position where, you know, the movie was made, and now there's a lot of attention on the whole SEAL community. Whereas 21 years ago when I came in, there was no attention. I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting into at all. So it's a little bit of a different scenario now for the kids these days who are getting in. They're coming in educated as to what it takes to get through the SEAL program, not just a guess. And it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Now, my husband's coworker, who was a former Navy SEAL, you know, that's when I first came into the knowledge of Navy SEALs, because all I knew was the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And then I met him, who was a Navy SEAL. Then the reality show was on television, the making of a Navy SEAL and the training that they had to go through, the rigorous training. So we would watch it because we would just think about everything Ned had to go through to become a Navy SEAL. Did you ever see that reality show?
The making of a Navy SEAL?
Yeah, it was a reality show. It came on every week, and they were going through training to become a Navy SEAL. And a lot of people wasn't making it because the training was so rigorous. It was they had a reality show, but it was actual people going through the training, so it was real.
Oh,
it was being filmed.
Are you talking? I think you might be talking about Buzz Class 234. Buzz Class 234. Was it on Military Channel and Discovery?
No. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't on Discovery, but it was very good. And so, but we got an insight on the training that everyone actually had to go through. Now, going back to you're a former Navy SEAL, but right now I hear you're a stuntman. So you do stunts in commercials and movies right now?
I do. Lots of them.
Now, what made you want to transition from being a Navy SEAL to a stuntman?
Well, I didn't really ask for it. It just kind of landed on me. I had spent a little time as the poster guy for the SEAL community, and they were doing a movie called Navy Diver up in L.A., and they needed somebody who was African American to do a stunt double for Cuba Gooding Jr., who was going to be the star of this movie. And they said, "Well, I just saw this guy. Let's try to get him." To come, he's obviously good in the water, and so I ended up getting a phone call down at the SEAL Command while I was in the teams, and so I went up and did that job, and it ended up being the movie called Men of Honor. That was my first one. So it's Cuba's if you can't see Cuba's face and there's somebody in a suit, well, it's not Cuba. So
that movie was great.
That was my first one, and then I've just been kind of working on it ever since. Been in probably about 13, 14 movies, and I don't know how many different commercials. So do a lot of military style stunts. So it'd be Humvee driving or shooting helicopter rappelling, fast roping, a lot of skydiving lately. So that's kind of what I've been doing a lot of stunt-wise.
So, Jeff, you have a wonderful ministry, and it's called Force Ministries that you co-founded. Can you tell us about your ministry?
Sure. Force is about reaching the military member where they are in their, wherever they are militarily. And that meaning that we mean that geographically, we mean that professionally, and we definitely mean that personally. Because a lot of these guys are in many ways just struggling because they have to go over. They live life by their tools of natural warfare, and one thing we want to make sure they have is the proper equipment and knowledge to know how to use the spiritual armor, the spiritual equipment, or military issue. So that's what we call when you get equipment, military equipment. It's called issue. When you get your military issue, you're taught how to use it. So what we do at Force Ministries is make sure that they know that there is a spiritual issue, and how you teach it, how you learn it, how you use it is very, very important in our walk as believers. So that's one of the things that we've taken on at Force Ministries is just a very active role in these men's lives. We have nothing to do with their military training, but everything to do with just making sure that they are looked after, that they are loved and cared for, and mentored and discipled as believers.
That is really a blessing, and this is something that you co-founded. And also, the Navy SEALs have something called Life of Valor. What does that mean?
Well, Life of Valor is it's actually just a little bit of a spin-off from the movie Act of Valor, which is now in theaters. Grace Hill Media did this fantastic job of putting together a men's curriculum that closely mirrors the actual ethos and tenets that the SEAL team members live by. Now, to take those tenets and that ethos and to place it into a spiritual context and apply Scripture to it and apply men who are believers to it, and send it out to people who are men who are across the nation, able to take and in one sitting on this website be able to absorb and put it into a spiritual context in a way that they can apply it immediately to their lives, the things that SEALs oftentimes work and strive for their entire adult lives. So, for instance, it took me my entire adult life to learn some of the things that are in this website, Life of Valor. So we really encourage all men and actually anybody to go and look at this website, lifeofvalor.com, because you will learn something from it. You will take something from it immediately. But the website is actually designed for small groups, men's groups, and life groups or churches to go through and be able to watch a section of this at a time, and then it'll spur conversations that will in fact be life-changing for many people. And wives, girlfriends, have your guys go and make sure they watch this, because it will revolutionize the way they do business in their hearts and in their minds.
That is amazing, everything you just said. So if you're a man and you're listening right now, make sure you go to lifeofvalor.com. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And we want to make sure everyone goes and sees the movie Act of Valor in theaters right now. Make sure you go and see it. I'm sure it is going to change people's lives. And do not forget, they're actually using real Navy SEALs in the movie. Again, thank you so much, Jeff, for joining me on the show. It was truly a blessing to have you today.
Hey, thank you so much. It was great talking to you. You guys have a great, blessed day.
You too. Bye-bye.